Week 2 of March Madness back here, not that fucking basketball tournament, the podcast. We'll say the name in a second after the opening credits. But, Mackenzie, with that in mind, this being sports-themed month, did you play any sports as a kid?
Yeah, I was not allowed to play most sports because of my accident when I was a kid. So when I did finally get to start being competitive in anything, it was swimming, competitive swimming, non-contact sport. So I swam for USA Swimming for a couple of teams, UT and another local club here in Austin. And yeah, did that for a long time.
That's cool. It's a fitting, mostly individual sport for you, but a little bit of team dynamic in there too. I was also trying to find an appropriate way to find humor in this, but was your accident that happened something that happened to you or something you did to somebody else that you weren't allowed to play youth sports?
I didn't do anything to anybody else, shockingly enough. No, it was my bicycle accident that I had when I was very young, and I basically
Bicycle?
bicycle. I broke my whole ass face. Yeah, crushed it all up. I'm a
You don't
cyborg.
have an ass face. Don't say that. Guys, you
You're
can't
right.
see her. She does not have an ass face.
I do have a titanium face, though. That part is for sure. Lots of
That could be
titanium
like
up
your
in this bitch.
superpower. Like,
Yeah,
get
if you
hit
punch me
face-
in the face, it's going to
Yeah.
hurt you more than me, for sure.
Anywhere else, though, you're dead. But
Everywhere else,
the
exactly.
face, now you're in trouble.
100%. What was yours?
So I did a little bit of everything, but mostly baseball for like 4 or 5 years as a kid. All-star second baseman in 6th grade. No big deal. I was from a small town.
What?
But I also did basketball for 1 season, I want to say. I'm 5'4" now. I was shorter, believe it or not, as a child. So basketball is not my sport.
Not your jam. Not your jam.
Pun intended, not my jam. And then my dad is big into bowling, or was big into bowling. So he set myself and both of my siblings. It was a way for my parents to probably get us out of the house, all 3 of us, every Saturday morning. So we would go to the local bowling alley and bowl for like 2 hours in like competitive teams and stuff. So I got decent. I wouldn't say I was great, but I was decent at bowling too.
That's awesome. Your Saturday mornings sound way better than mine. I was definitely doing chores and would have much preferred bowling, but I do have a bowling ball, which,
You own a bowling ball?
I own a bowling ball. I don't bowl a lot, but I have one. And
how heavy is it? Like what's the poundage on that?
it's been a long time, so I'd have to double check, but I think it's an 11 pound is what stands out to me. I feel like I remember 11. Does that feel right?
Yeah, I think I used a 10 when I was younger, and I think now if I do go bowling, it's probably like a 12, so that sounds about right.
Nice. Also, 11 is my lucky number, so that could also be why I could have just told the guy, like, I would like an 11-pound bowling ball.
It would be funny if you had no idea what the number meant. You just saw your favorite number on the ball and were like, yep, that's the one right there.
That's the one. Which feels like something I would do, to be honest. So who knows?
Well, I thought that this opening segment would have more childhood trauma than it did. We got a little bit,
we got a
your
little bit of
accident
trauma
and
for
whatnot,
sure.
and my struggles with basketball, but I'm a little let down. Okay, let's keep it light though, because last week got heavy. So I think it's good that we're getting rid of trauma early in this episode.
Just light trauma, no big deal. So we did all right. All right. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm Lemar.
And today we're continuing
Why
March
did you
Madness.
go to take a drink from your drink right?
I know.
I was just going to say I'm Lemar, and you were bringing the glass to your mouth.
And I immediately was like, I need booze. As soon as I heard you say anything, I was like, I need a drink.
Instinct at this point. It's just like, I'm talking to Lamar. I need a drink.
I got to start drinking immediately. Okay, well, we haven't drank yet, despite all evidence to the contrary. But here we go. We are continuing our March Madness with a league of their own. Our much disputed baseball pick, which we'll get into later. But
about disputed. It's just, it was a very close call with the Sandlot. And don't worry, people who voted for the Sandlot. We have a plan for that long term. You won't get it this month, but we will be doing Sandlot eventually.
I'm more speaking to like all the aggressive DMs I got about all these other baseball movies
Oh,
that weren't even
yeah,
on
yeah.
the poll. And I'm like, well, they're not on the
Mhm.
poll for other unrelated reasons. Like everybody call it they, everybody who wanted to mansplain to me that Bull Durham is a great baseball movie. And I was like, I'm aware. I've heard it. I've seen it. I love it. We're not opening that can of worms on the pod. But there were a bunch of great suggestions. So we do appreciate the suggestions. They were really good. But it didn't seem like our list was comprehensive enough, I guess is maybe the way to say
Yeah, I
it.
think there's such a thing as too much choice. So I think
Yeah.
it would have come down to The Sandlot versus League of Their Own anyway. I think no matter how
Yeah.
many picks, it would have been those as the final two. So
I think so. Yeah, but you're right. We'll address the Sandlot later because that one's just too good not to talk about at some
yeah,
point. But in the meantime, we tried to jump the gun on it already with the drinking, but what are we drinking?
we are drinking what we have dubbed the Rockford Peach, and I think you came up with the actual recipe, right?
Yeah. So this is basically if you like gold rushes, it's basically a gold rush with some peach liqueur,
Mm-hmm.
essentially.
It's
So
tasty.
quite. And then did you do puree? Because I know you were on the fence, puree
Yeah,
versus
I ended up
liqueur.
using like a peach puree, and then I think I
Mm.
offset it with a little bit of Cointreau, so it's got a bit of orange
Mm.
in mine as well. But it's very very good.
You're an orangey peach.
Yeah,
Nice. Shaking it up. All right.
you're a
Cool. Well,
Rockford peach.
you're a
I don't know
Rockford
why that
peach.
line stands out to me, but
Well, cheers to that. Now I'm allowed to drink, so I'm going to
yeah,
drink.
cheers.
All right. Well, I mean, just to warn you guys up front, we know that most of you, if not all of you, have seen this movie. There will not be a spoiler-free section. This movie's been out for a hot minute since 1992,
Yeah.
so it's been around the block for a while. And if you haven't seen it yet, I feel super bummed for you. You should get right on that. But yeah, it came out early 90s. Great film. I have so many like young kid memories watching this movie. I feel like I've seen this movie a
Mhm.
bazillion times, and it's so funny to remember how it felt when you watched it the first time versus like rewatching it now. And so it's kind of a classic in that way, I think. And it's pretty universally beloved. I mean, the ratings are what? Metacritic is 7.6 out of 10. Pretty solid. Pretty legit.
Yeah,
Pretty
Rotten
legit.
Tomatoes high on both the critic and the audience scores. IMDb also like a 7.3, which is pretty high for a sports movie and a comedy in general. And what you said before about your childhood, this is one of the first movies that I remember connecting with my mom on. Like this was one of me and my
Mm.
mom's favorite movies. And we don't
Ooh.
really have a lot of those in common anymore as I've gotten older because she really likes Tyler Perry. I'm not a big Tyler Perry guy, but she
Really?
loves Tyler Perry. So we don't sit down and watch those, but we'll always have a League of Their Own.
There you go. Just go back to that League of Their Own. Yeah, I'm not
Mhm.
a big Tyler Perry fan myself either. But it's funny you say that. My grandmother, my grandparents rather, on my mom's side, they were not big movie people. But this was
Mhm.
one of the few movies that they loved, that they really liked, and one of the even fewer movies that lived in the house. So like I remember going to my grandparents' house where there were like no movies there. It was like My Fair Lady, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and A League of Their Own. And that was like literally it that was in the whole house. So we watched this a lot when I was a kid. And if you could get my grandparents to watch a movie,
Mhm.
was pretty impressive. Pretty
And that's a
impressive.
good one. It's a feel good film for the most part. There's obviously some emotional moments, but it's
Hmm.
just a very uplifting film. It's based on a true story, which is awesome. And yeah, it's funny, it's witty, it's emotional, it's clever, it's all these different things. So it's just an enjoyable watch.
100%. Well, let's run down some of the basics before we dig into the fun stuff. So, if you didn't know, this was directed by Penny Marshall, sister of Gary Marshall.
May she
I
rest
only
in
say
peace.
that because I feel like people hear, Gary Marshall and they can place a lot of things by him, but she's actually quite ubiquitous as a director as well. But they have a very similar tone, I find. They seem to always kind of like their films have a similar energy to them.
What
Similar.
has Gary Marshall done? Because I can't tell you.
So he did. Gosh, now of course it escapes me. The first one that popped into my head, I kind of don't even like, which is
Star
Valentine's
Wars,
Day.
Valentine's Day. Isn't Valentine's Day a horror movie?
I mean, we're talking about clearly different Valentine's Day movies. You would have a horror movie reference
I'm pretty
readily
sure there's one
available.
called Val, or maybe I'm thinking of Prom Night, but I could have sworn there was a
I
horror movie
mean,
called Valentine's Day.
I'm sure
Oh.
you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong at all, but definitely not the first one that came to mind
Oh,
for
no, I'm
me.
thinking of My Bloody Valentine. My Bloody Valentine. That's what I'm thinking
Oh,
of.
okay, okay, okay. That
Let's
makes
just
more
do that
sense.
one instead. Let's skip this baseball shit and get back to
Let's go.
October horror movies.
Let's get down to My Bloody Valentine. Exactly. Well, point is, he did like Pretty Woman,
Oh, okay.
Valentine's Day, Princess Diaries, I think is him as well. Like just that kind of like feel good, wholesome energy to them, generally
Oh,
speaking, is like kind of his vibe. And I think her work is the same. You know, her
yeah.
work is
The only one
similar
I
there.
know of hers is Big, but that,
Mm-hmm.
another Tom Hanks one, but again, another very positive, uplifting, witty, clever one.
Mm-hmm. He also did Hocus Pocus, which like let's get down to business. That's legit.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah.
We talked
And
about that one in our Halloween episode.
she plays his wife in Hocus Pocus. I forgot. If you want to picture who Penny Marshall is, she plays his wife in Hocus
Wait, he
Pocus.
cast his sister to play his wife in a movie?
Yeah, but he's like, they're not romantic at all. They're basically fighting, is the point. Like, it's kind of hilarious. Do you remember, like, the guy who plays the devil in Hocus Pocus, where the
It's
girls.
been a minute for me, honestly. I do
Well, the
remember Hocus
Sanderson
Pocus, but
sisters like go invade
mm-hmm.
this house because they think he's the devil. They think that he's their master, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And she's this like housewife, and they're all flirting with her husband, and she like loses her shit on them.
Oh.
It's very funny. Anyway, that's her. She does go work. She's directed this film. He obviously is also in this film, and so we'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, so she's done some great work. It was written, however, by Kim Wilson, Kelly Candelay. I don't actually know if I pronounced that right. My apologies if that was wrong. And Lowell Gans. So kind of I mean, the writing of this film is so good. I mean,
I
I think
also
it's just a well-written film.
I found it interesting when I was looking because when I looked it up, I thought I saw 4 names, and I thought it was 2 females and 2 males. And what I thought was, just based on name alone, I apologize, but they didn't have pictures. So anyway, I thought it was weird or strange that the 2 females are the ones who came up with the story, and I guess maybe outlined just the loose story of this or
Mm.
adapted the story in some way from the true story. And the 2 males are the ones who actually got credited with writing the screenplay. And I thought that was very strange, but maybe that's just more a sign of the times of the early 90s of, oh, it's a comedy script, like let these 2 dudes write it. But to its credit, this doesn't feel like it was written by 2 guys. The script here is very,
No.
I think, coming from a man. This was speaking to women in a way, that most films written by men, I think, couldn't.
At that time, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. I would think, yeah, it's probably just, like this is the storyboard, this is the story idea, and you guys go fill in the gaps. Like they definitely are multi-credited here with all of them.
Okay.
But yeah, I love that Barbie has like feminized you in such a way that you are just now looking at everything with this lens. And I'm so proud. I'm so proud
I
of
only
you.
get passionate about female issues and wrestling, as we learned last week. Those are my 2 things that's my platform.
An incredible combo, by the way.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
love it. Okay, well, we have an awesome cast and crew here. We'll knock out really quick as well. Of course, Tom Hanks as Jimmy Dugan, real dude. Again, to your point, based partially on a true story. Most of the characters are based on real people, but he was a famous baseball player as well, Jimmy Dugan. Gina Davis plays Dottie. And we have, I actually note there, I didn't write down the older version of Dottie, but I remember, and even to this day, rewatching it, thinking that this was the same person and they had aged her so well.
Same.
Like she looks
Yes.
exactly like her. I can't remember her name, but her older actress
So
version.
well cast. And
so well cast.
I think the other thing that adds to that, the effectiveness, is that they did have Gina Davis dub her dialogue
voice,
for
yeah.
the voice. So it sounds like Dottie throughout the whole film as well.
It does. It's such a great trick, but yeah, she just looks just like her. It's like Gina Davis, when she gets older, is going to look like that woman. So anyway, beautifully done. But Lori Petty as well plays Kit.
Who had to color her hair because of this. She got cast. So this ties into Gina Davis. So Gina Davis was not the original pick for Dottie. She had to replace, I think it was Deborah Winger or something. I don't know if that's the exact name, but this other actress, 3 days ahead of shooting, could no longer do the film. So they brought in Gina Davis to replace her. They had already cast Lori Petty. They had to color her hair so she would look more like Gina Davis, so they could be sisters.
Wow, I didn't know that one. I mean, I did know that she was recast, but I didn't know that she had to dye her hair and do all that to kind of match her. That makes sense, though. But yeah, they do make them look pretty similar, other than the fact, of course, that she's like way shorter than her.
Towering over her like a monster.
But other than that, they do look similar. I feel like it works. But yeah. So we have Lori Petty playing her kid sister Kit, and then we also have Madonna, of course, because why not? Playing All the Way May.
It's
And
apparently a huge pain in the ass on set too.
which is anybody surprised
Doesn't
by that?
surprise me in the least.
0%
Apparently, she's still not welcome in the town that they did the majority of the filming for the World Series. Like they're just like, Madonna, don't come back here because you were
Hard
just so
no.
terrible to everyone in this town.
She's always been a diva. I mean, I think that again, that passes the vibe check. Like, I'm not at all surprised. But she also did. So Madonna played the lead in Evita, if you've never seen it, and she plays Eva Peron, and she does a beautiful job in that film, and she sings, of course, that part really, really well. But similar stories on that set as well, of her being just kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, no one's disputing her talent, but she just doesn't seem like a very pleasant person.
But like, why this is just a different tangent. If you're talented and successful and you have all these great things going for you, like, could you maybe just like not be a dick? I don't know. Pro tip, just maybe don't be a dick.
How hard is it to,
How hard is it to just like not be a douche about it? But whatever. C'est la vie. Rosie O'Donnell coming in hot as Doris.
I don't like even as a kid, I didn't like Rosie O'Donnell.
Really?
That was before she even got her own show.
I remember watching that show a lot, actually.
Yeah. You watched the Rosie O'Donnell show a lot?
Listen, I didn't have cable.
Name 5 episodes. Name any
I can't
5
name
episodes.
them. It's a talk show.
That's the joke. That's the joke. But yeah, so I was not a huge Rosie O'Donnell fan, but I did like her in this. I think she fits this role very well.
She did a great job at this role, and I think she's been good in a few things. And Gary Marshall, as we said, Sister Penny Marshall's the director, but he plays Mr. Harvey, and he is based off of, you didn't know, Wrigley. So Harvey bars is supposed to be Wrigley chewing gum, and if you, of course, didn't notice, Wrigley Field, one of the most beautiful ballparks in all of America and one of the most historic, is the setting for the audition or the tryouts for the league. And so, he's supposed to be Mr. Harvey, aka Mr. Wrigley. So everything was set there in this beautiful, beautiful ballpark. And
did you know who
he
they originally wanted for that part, though?
To be Mr. Harvey?
Mr. Harvey?
No?
I don't think you would guess it in a million years, but it's Mr. Christopher Walken. That was her first. Can you imagine him?
Yikes.
Give me your best Walken impression, Mackenzie.
I think that would be a misfire by
That's
a lot.
That's a terrible impression. I think that would be a misfire by a lot. Say that again, but in Walken voice.
Oh man, I don't think I can do it. I have to hear it first. We need a clip of Christopher Walken. Hit me with a clip.
That Super Bowl commercial where they had everybody doing his voice. Yeah.
Yeah, my sister's the impressions person, man. She could do any of these. She did a great Forrest Gump, for example. I used to love my sister's Forrest Gump. She was
People
really
say I do a good Christopher Walken.
Let's go.
All right. Hello, it's me, Christopher Walken. I'm walking here. Yeah.
Oh my God, no.
Pretty spot on.
It feels really different for me, but you do you. Whatever you think works. That would be such a weird casting, though. Truly, I don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
But he does good. He does well, Mr. Marshall. Nevertheless, even though he wants to shut down the league after the first year, which we'll get into that, but which didn't, spoiler alert, end up happening in real life. This league ran for 11 years. In case you were curious.
And it was successful right off the bat, too. It was interesting because this movie makes it seem like it was struggling. But what this league did was they actually chose cities in sort of, not the middle of nowhere, but in the Midwest that did not have Major League Baseball teams. Because the draw was these fans were willing to pay money. This is before cable television. So they are willing to pay money to go see live sports. So actually the league was a lot more successful. But this makes for a better movie. So.
For sure. You got to have a little bit of a conflict there. Plus, it really kind of jives and makes sense that it wouldn't necessarily be that successful out of the gate. I mean, just, misogyny is real and people think that women can't play baseball or certain sports or do certain things. So, unfortunately, it makes a lot of sense that it wouldn't go well. But very, very quick high-level summary of the plot.
Yeah.
Two sisters join the first female professional baseball league and struggle to help it succeed amid their own growing rivalry. And it's a fictionalized true story, as we said. So, based on a true story, but it's definitely been fictionalized. And the All American Girls Professional Baseball League did last for 11 years, to your point. And a lot of the key folks, like Lowenstein, who actually I didn't call out his name in the cast.
Ira.
Um, Ira Lowenstein, yeah, the actor's name escapes me at the moment, but does an incredible job as well. And he was instrumental in making this league successful. So it lasted a long time. And I wish we still had women's baseball. I would totally watch women's baseball. Like, let's
I still
make it
don't get
happen.
why women have to play softball. And I'm not calling into question. I think softball, you have to be very talented. I think they're great
Sure.
athletes. But I don't understand why they made it that women had to play softball as opposed to just letting women play baseball. What? Why?
I don't know. I don't know why it ultimately failed or why they transitioned to softball or what have you, because, yeah, I think baseball is just as, if not more interesting than softball. I also think softball seems in a lot of ways harder just because of the ball itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I know it's not going to go as far. It's not going to hit as far, things like that. Like, they did things to the game for softball to make it, like, I don't know, not as interesting as baseball in my view. Like, you can't get the same hit off a softball that you can off a baseball. You know what I mean? Like, that's part of what makes that the game entertaining, and seeing how far you can get out of the park and like stuff like that. And then I don't know, it affects how you pitch it, things like that. So I'm just surprised that that has been the transition. And yeah, I personally, I would love to see us just play some fucking baseball. Why not?
Let them play. Let
Let
them
them
play.
play.
Let
Let
them play.
them play. Okay, we're sorry. We're gonna stop now. We're not sorry that we want there to be baseball though, for sure. But yeah, so I mean, this is a great movie and well rated. Super enjoy it, but also was very successful at the time. At the time when it came out, it was a like $40 million budget, and they blew that out of the water. They came in at 132 million.
Yeah, and that's
So,
not even just at the time. This remains the top grossing baseball film of all time. So let that
which
sink in for a second. Top
which I
grossing
think,
baseball movie.
yeah, I mean, which if you think about context, all the ones that you guys suggested to us that you love, Sandlot, which is of course a classic, Moneyball, which was incredible. It was a
Mhm.
great film, incredibly well written, was very popular, nominated for a bunch of Oscars. Like this outgrossed that is quite incredible.
Fuck you, Angels in the outfield. Kiss my ass,
I was
God.
gonna say, I think it's a little blasphemous to tell the Angels in the outfield to fuck
I
off.
did. I did. Shout out to my friend Matt, though, who did point out that the entire plot of that movie is that God is willing to meddle with professional sports. That's just a great way to summarize the premise of that film.
I mean, it is impressive that he would get involved. I guess maybe he's just a baseball fan. He's like, that's the sport. That's my sport. You never know.
And
I
they
mean, I
named the
get it.
team after his soldiers, so clearly that's who he would want to win.
Oh, fair,
Yeah.
fair. It's true. He was like, this is my team. They made it for me. I
Mhm.
gotta support it. I gotta support it. But yeah, so I mean, we got lots of goodies about this one. We're not gonna go over it in a specific plot order, but the high level is that Dottie and her sister again have this core rivalry, and there is a baseball scout who is looking for women players so that they can come and to the Midwest. And these women are based in Oregon, but they're all over the place that they are scouting these folks, and they're actually already playing baseball as part of like a local league, like a
Yeah,
dairy league
yeah.
and things like that. And they're already, you can tell, Gina Davis's Dottie is really good, and her little sister is just this stubborn, like kind of bratty character. It's interesting to watch this again as an adult and be like, she's just kind of a brat, or at least for me, she was.
Yeah, definitely sort of she's got middle child syndrome despite not being a middle child, I think.
Yeah, got strong younger
Like,
sister
what about
vibes.
me? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the what about meism of it all. But I'm a younger sister, but I definitely was bratty when I was a kid, but I didn't have like that energy the way that she does, where like she doesn't have she's this direct competitiveness with her sister. And my sister and I
Mhm.
were like not competitive in that way. We definitely had different interests and stuff. So like we just didn't have that vibe. But she doesn't want to hear anything that her sister says. Like her sister is trying to help her, trying to be a good coach and what have you, but she
Mhm.
is, like, you could say she's a little bit of a know-it-all. She is really good at this thing.
A little
And so
self-righteous.
a little
A
self-righteous.
little
Yeah,
bit.
it's good way to put it. Exactly. A little self-righteous of she does know what she's doing, and she will let you know that she knows what she's doing as well. But yeah, Kit's very stubborn about that. Like, does not
Mhm.
want to hear it. Is not about that life. And but then the scout comes, wants Dottie
Wait,
specifically.
wait. Can we put some respect on the scout, please? Mr.
Yes,
John Lovitz
Mr.
killing
John
this
Lovitz.
damn role.
He also looks just like the real guy. I don't know if you ever saw the real dude, the picture of the real
No,
guy.
no, no.
No, you didn't see it.
Mm-mm,
He
mm-mm.
looks exactly like him. He's like it's almost eerie. I think they show a picture of him later too, where you can kind of see it. But
I didn't
uh,
know he was a real person, but Ernie Capadino, I think I have written down. That sound
yeah,
right?
he's based off a real scout, and it was the one. I think it's the one guy. I think it was the one scout, and so he
Hmm.
really was like kind of putting together this whole league. At least in the early days, there was one scout, which I guess makes sense.
I thought it
Um,
was interesting looking back on this, especially on rewatch. But even as a kid, I remember thinking, why isn't he in the movie for longer? Because he
I
was far and away
know.
when I was young my favorite part of the film. Like the things that he's saying, the insults, the barbs, and how much of a dick he is to all these people. I really enjoy. And then he disappears, and you get a little goodbye to him at the very end. But I always thought that was weird, and apparently I don't know how much he was in the original script, but they did trim down his role in the film a little bit, or at least his dialogue, because they realized that test audiences really were just laughing at all the horrible insults he was spewing at these young women and like the hurtful things and how callous he was. So they cut out
Mm,
some of his other developmental moments and some of the more just spur of the moment conversations he was having in favor of just having you laugh your ass off at everything he says.
just him being a dick. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
That's hilarious. I mean, it really lands. And it does become like that it becomes his character very much. I love when he's walking off the field. So spoiler alert, he gets them both to come.
Mm-hmm.
Gina Davis has to talk him into like, okay, I'll come, but you got to take my sister too. So she does, like, sort of as she quotes later, gets her into the league, quote unquote. Um but then they're leaving at Wrigley Field and going their separate ways, and they're like, wait, where are you going? What's happening? Like, what are you doing? He's like, God, I hate when they get attached like that. And I always just love that line because it just implies that every girl, every woman that he dropped off at that field is like attached to him, gloms onto him in a short period of time.
Now, speaking of John Lovitz as Ernie, they also pick up along the way Miss Marla Hooch, who we didn't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
What a
Mm-hmm.
hitter. But she's played by Megan Kavanaugh, and I did not realize as a kid, and people are going to roll their eyes because I think it's very obvious, but I did not realize as a kid that she was also in Robin Hood Men in Tights, which was another one of my favorite kid movies,
Mm-hmm.
and she's
Mm-hmm.
Broomhilda in that. Never put it
Mm-hmm.
together, I guess, because she's wearing a baseball cap in this, and she wears
Mm-hmm.
like the hood thing,
The piece. Yeah.
yeah, headpiece in that one. So maybe I just couldn't tell the difference because she had on a different hat. But yeah, I did not realize that was the same actress.
I mean, I didn't know that right away. I did know that after a while, like seeing it, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
probably when I rewatched it in like my mid 20s or something like that. I think I feel like was when I discovered that. But, I always just feel so bad for her as an actor that she's like, especially in this one where they talk so blatantly about
Yeah.
how ugly she is. And like they make such a point of it. And of course, they're trying to make her look very plain. They're trying to make her
Mm-hmm.
not look, super attractive, but she's not like horrendous, and they're making it seem like she is just this troll. And I just have never, I didn't like that then, I don't like it now. I don't think that ages well, but in this case it does. It contributes very specifically to the story, right? Of
Yeah.
they have to like in protest basically say like, we're not going if you don't take her. Like, she's just too good to pass up, because she's fucking incredible. She can hit righty, she can hit lefty. If you
Mm-hmm.
like or you watch baseball, you know what a big deal that is. And she's literally knocking them out of the park. So it would be ridiculous to not have this person on this team. And I
And
do
I,
like though that they don't highlight that during the tryouts. Like, she just makes the team. She just makes the team because
yeah.
she's a fucking awesome hitter.
And I love the emotional moment that you get with her dad explaining that he's raised in, again, different time,
Yeah.
double different time, because this came out in the 90s, but it's based in the 40s. So for him to say, I raised her by myself. She's a tomboy. I always taught her how to play
Right.
sports, and that's why she doesn't wear makeup and all this stuff. And you get this very heartstring pulling speech from her dad. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a good little emotional moment early in the movie when most of what you're doing at that point is still laughing.
For sure. And he has a short but yeah, really kind of beautiful appearance in that way of he's telling this story and explaining if she were a boy, he'd be talking to the Yankees, which like
Yep.
he fucking would, she's really, really good.
But
So
he's an idiot because the Yankees aren't even playing right now. They're at war. So shut up, Dad. I take back everything I said.
there goes your emotional moment. Fuck off. No, yeah, he does a great job. But yeah, then you get everybody to the field, to the auditions. I keep saying auditions. I'm such a theater kid. Tryouts.
The
Um,
auditions
I'm
for the
such a fucking theater
baseball
kid. Exactly.
team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Baseball
We're
auditions will be this Saturday at 3 o'clock.
100%. I wasn't as we said. I did not play team sports when I was a kid, so I didn't go to a lot of tryouts. I definitely went to a lot of auditions though. But yeah, so they go to tryouts at Wrigley. Of course, again, beautiful ballpark. If you haven't been, you got to see a game at Wrigley. It's a requirement, I think, for any baseball fan. And it's cool because they meet the rest of that fun cast of characters that we mentioned. They meet
Mhm.
Madonna, they meet Doris and all that. And I love, who doesn't love the moment when they're saying, well, a lot of you are going home. And they're like, wait, why are you assuming that we're going home? I think is what they
Mhm.
say. And so then she throws this really fast, unexpected pitch, and Gina Davis catches it,
Palms it.
palms it, bare hand catches it. So legit, love it. It's awesome. It hurts to hear, you're like, holy shit. And I just love the immediate adjustment. Okay, some of them are going home. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just one of my favorite lines. It's so cute because they come in and they immediately make themselves known at these, a big tryout. There's probably a couple hundred girls there, and only 100 are going to make the team.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of the tryouts component, the actresses that wanted to be in this film, whether they were extras or even the main cast, actually did sort of have to pass a baseball tryout as part of their audition
Yeah,
for this role. Like you were not allowed to be in this film if you couldn't
if
at
you couldn't
least
play.
pass as a baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, for example, Marissa Tomei auditioned for this and sent in like a reel while she was filming a different movie. I think My Cousin Vinny she was filming at the time
Mm-hmm.
sent a video to Penny Marshall, but Penny Marshall was just like, she's a great actress. She just doesn't have the baseball skills that we need for this film.
She can't play, yeah. And you saw it because there are so many moments that they film where it's like it's not a stunt double, it's not an extra,
No
like
stunt
they
doubles.
are playing. So, I think it's easy to assume that these women are tapping out for certain scenes or what have you, but they're the ones playing and they film them truly playing. There's so much great footage, like even see later in some of the freeze frames and some of the stuff you see for the museum later, the still shots of them playing. It's
Mm-hmm.
them playing. You can tell, like, and you have all seen those freeze frames in really truly watching any sport. You can see the consternation on their face or a gesture or what have you. You can tell when somebody is really playing. And I think that's what I love about this film and how it's shot. These women are playing and you can see it, and the effort and the physicality is totally there.
Yeah, apparently they just had them on the field and they would just play actual baseball games
Yeah,
just to get extra real
just all
footage,
kinds of
just to
shots.
fill in some of the montages and whatnot.
100%, 100%. And I think it really shows, and it shows in the, like, it's such a good way to produce the film, such a good way to shoot it and plan it and get some of that really good content.
Yeah, but like segueing out of the actual tryouts or auditions, if you will, when
Hmm. Hmm.
you get another scene there, which I referenced earlier when I said you're a Rockford Peach. That scene of the woman who can't read at the tryout list that
Hmm.
always got me in the
Oh,
heartstrings too when I was a
oof.
kid, and that one definitely lands.
That's very sweet. And it's kind of sad, like he doesn't get it at first. He's not trying to be mean. He doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah,
And she can't read and what have you. And I love that somebody just runs up and helps her and they figure it out. And then they're very welcoming. Nobody
women supporting women.
women fucking supporting women. Exactly. Not a one of them is like, she can't read or what, ooh, she's so country or whatever it is that they could say about her. They were just like, cool, she's on our team. Like, fuck
Hmm.
yeah. And so, yeah, I love that. It's a really, really sweet moment. And then you see them kind of bond into their respective teams right away. And again, that women supporting women vibe. And they're all, that's the other thing about this film, is they're all such different types of women. You have the quote unquote, and we don't really, I think we've said this on another pod, we don't really say tomboy anymore or whatever, but like you have the
Hmm.
prototypical quote unquote tomboys, but you also have these like girly girls who are into makeup, into clothes, into nail polish and lipstick and all the things, but they just want to fucking play baseball. And that's true. Like, I just think women really do run the gamut in that way. You can be somebody who is dressy or well put together or whatever, and you can love a sport like baseball, or you can love something that's typically associated with men or what have you. And I thought this movie did such a good job, especially at that time, to your point, both in the 90s and in the 40s, of showing that diversity of types of women who would all be able to bond over their love of this game.
I mean, for God's sakes, you got Madonna, her character May, who is a dancer at a club, and Doris is the bouncer. So it
Yeah.
does really bring all types out to the field. It's the baseball's the game that unites our country, where
Mm-hmm.
wings take dream, or whatever George Bush said.
America's pastime. America's pastime. That's what it is for sure. But yeah, they start playing these games. They're shot really well. They of course are playing in skirts, which is fucking ridiculous. But I mean, they still, again, they show the fuck up. They're covered in bruises. They're scrapes. They're getting
Mm-hmm.
scrapes and all this stuff. But what happens early on is that Jimmy Dugan is there. He's an alcoholic, as we've come to find out over the early stages of this film, and he's been hired for his name. He's been hired because he's a famous player. He's going to lend some gravitas to the game, going to lend some gravitas to this league that needs that promotional aspect to it. And so he's not really involved early on. I mean, he's definitely already made his mark as far as stealing scenes and things, but he's
The
just sitting
peeing
there
scene? Are you talking about the peeing scene?
the peeing scene. Yes, literally made his
That's
mark. Literally made his mark.
that I read that was actually Tom Hanks just had to, first off, he gained 30 pounds to play this role, which when you
Mhm.
think of Tom Hanks, he seems kind of timeless in a way. Like,
Yeah.
obviously he's aging, but I didn't realize how early in his career this was. This was like year 10 to 12 in acting for him. And
Mhm.
he had his
Mhm.
breakthrough roles, but for him, when he's that young, to be like, yeah, I'll take this role that's going to have me play this alcoholic and I'll gain 30 pounds and look
Yeah.
kind of schlubby. And he looks older than his actual age in this film. But for that peeing scene, apparently it was just Penny Marshall directing it from inside one of the bathroom stalls with a hose and a bucket. And she didn't even tell Tom Hanks how long he had to sell it. Like, he was just supposed to listen and pretend to pee along
And like
with it.
react.
And
Yeah.
just reacts, so like it
Yeah.
stops kind of, and then he just keeps going again. And he's just
Yeah.
a great actor. So good improviser too, I guess.
He did great. And it's so funny. And it's such a weird and funny introduction to his team. And I love that they all have varying degrees of reactions to this. Some girls are, very much scandalized. Others think it's hilarious. One of them is trying to time it, whatever. And it's such a funny introduction to him and to the team. And it shows you that right away, he's not really taking this seriously. And
No.
he continues to not take it seriously. He continues to literally fall asleep in the dugout, not pay attention. So of course, Dottie, the best player on the team, is kind of having to take the role of manager as well. She's catching and managing the game, and she's calling for the team. And he finally starts to pay attention when there's a play he doesn't agree with. Marla Hooch is up at bat. She's telling her a certain position, and he is not happy with that. And then they get the legendary, I feel like, signal war that's so fun, where they just go back and forth with their different signals, and they just keep doing it. And she finally bows out, and lets him do it. And
I like that the reason that she storms off is that he basically says, I'm the coach. And she's like, well, then fuck effing it. And she doesn't say effing act like it, but she says something to the tune of,
she
like,
said,
well,
then
act like it. Yeah.
Then act like it. Exactly. Yeah. And so he finally starts to take an interest and like really begin managing the team. And of course, that first call that he makes can't be overlooked, that she gets a hit. I mean, it is Marla Hooch who hits everything.
You probably don't want to lay down a bunt with your best hitter, so I'm with Jimmy on this one. Like, swing away.
Yeah, no, he's definitely, she gets an incredible hit, and it does well for the team and for the game and all of that. So yeah, it's such a great moment where you see it sort of shift, where he starts to invest, he starts to care about the team, he starts to watch the games, he's realizing they're not as bad as he thought. He just assumed that women's baseball was a joke, and he starts to take it seriously and really watch and get invested. And him and Dottie bond. As a result, they get tight because she's the best player on the team, and she's also, again, been managing the team for him while he's drunk off his ass. And so now they sort of are like co-leaders. They're really both doing this together, and it's like the beginning of that relationship that's really cool.
And apparently, the studio, when you're talking about their bond, the studio wanted there to be more of a romantic interest there. And I think you get the tiniest bit of it. You know, they'll share a drink here or there and they have these heart to hearts. But
Mhm.
I think there was originally a kiss written into the script that the studio really wanted there to be something of Dottie's husband is off at war, but she's bonding with this guy. And I think the movie works better without it, honestly.
I think it does work better without it. I don't think there's a easy or good way to do it and keep it clean, like keep it classy. I mean, like just
Hmm.
have the story be clean and not suffer from it. Because even if she did, say her husband passes away, let's just, gosh, worst case scenario, that telegram that comes later is for her.
Yeah.
It still would be like she would have guilt around this relationship with Jimmy. She would have like devastation and grieving for other reasons while simultaneously trying to begin a relationship with this man.
All
It
right.
just there's not a clean or classy way to tell that story. And I think it would have corrupted the film for sure. But I totally see it as well. Like they do have a bond, they do have chemistry, and there are certain actors who just have chemistry. And Gina Davis and Tom Hanks have chemistry. And I think that comes through in the roles to some degree of like you kind of are, kind of rooting for it. But yeah, I do think it would damage the story. I don't think it's the move for sure.
Yeah, I think it makes the story more compelling to have it be just a purely just two partners who are working for the
Two
success
good
of this team.
friends,
And obviously
yeah.
they are friends as well. And he's giving her advice on a personal level and he wants her to keep playing and not to sort of go back with her husband after he gets back. But yeah, I think it definitely works better than if there were something romantic there.
But I also think that you could fair and I totally agree with you, but I also think you could make the argument that Tom Hanks does have or Jimmy Dugan's character has some affection for her
Yeah.
and some attraction to her, and it helps pull him out of his own shit. Like he
Mm.
clearly is struggling at the beginning of this film, and seeing and bonding with her and being able to just relate to a woman in this way, I think you can say it contributes to his motivation to
Mhm.
get his shit together, is that he does care for this woman in what is potentially a romantic way. But I think it's also just as classy of him to go, I may have feelings for this woman, but she's a married woman and I'm not going to do anything about it. And this is just going to stay a friendship and a respectful professional relationship. So yeah, I think it's well handled ultimately.
I agree. Yeah, I think that this movie ties a lot of individual storylines together, and that's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if it was just a baseball movie about the women's baseball league, but to have this story of these two sisters who are kind of rivals, and one of them is going to get
Mm-hmm.
traded to the other team, and now they're meeting in the World Series. That's one thing. You have this storyline of a girl learning to read while she's on the road with these
Mm-hmm.
people. You have the story of this. I don't want to use the word homely, but this girl who we're told is homely throughout the film,
Mm-hmm.
finding
Mm-hmm.
love while they're out there. And then you have this story of the manager who's an alcoholic, and this league kind of turns his life around. So I think that's why
Yeah.
this movie again is so uplifting and positive.
Yeah, and you have a bunch of other stories too. You've got to your point, Madonna. When it feels like the league is gonna fold, she's
Mm-hmm.
devastated by that because these clubs that she's coming out of from dancing are, they're not a classy place to work at the time, and you're getting felt up by dudes in an uncomfortable position. But you got it, like girls got to work, and she doesn't want to go back to that. She's doing something that she loves, and she gets really upset about it. But they also give it some humor to it where she's like, what if like my bosoms fall out in the middle of a
When they're
game?
trying to get more people to come to the games, like, well, let's just
Yeah.
flash
And
them.
Doris's
Only
reaction
Madonna.
is the literal best. She's like, you think there are men in this country who ain't seen your bosoms? Like, it's just so funny. But there's like stories like that it's a wildly different type of person. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got a mom with her son trying to bring her son on these
Stool Angel.
Stool Angel. Oh my god, not an actual, he's an actual monster. But you gotta give that working mom fucking credit, right? Like she's trying to
Yeah.
hustle and take care of her kid, and she's doing the best that she can. And that's a whole other story that was representative. And like again, you're not seeing a lot of movies telling all of these types of stories, especially in one larger story. And then I also think that you can't overlook that Black women could not play at this time. There's
Mm-hmm.
still so much segregation everywhere, but also carried over into professional sports. And they even have a way to work that in. right? Like they're at a
Mhm.
game and they have a fly ball and this woman sees it and catches it and it's this black woman and she throws it not just to the closest person, she throws it across the fucking field. And
Mhm.
clearly somebody who, if given the opportunity, could have also played in this league and done really well. And they have just a small moment there of even acknowledging that. And I think this movie does such a good job of that.
Yeah, and credit to Penny Marshall on that front too, because I think it would have been easy to say, oh, well, we will just cast African American women to play on the teams. But she felt it was important to not
Mm-hmm.
completely exalt this league, because the truth is that this league did remain completely separated
Yeah.
even after Jackie Robinson had broken the
Yep.
color barrier in Major League Baseball. This
Mm-hmm.
league stayed segregated throughout its entire run. So
Mm-hmm.
never did black women play in this league.
Right.
But I think this movie found a way to, I guess, pay homage, but
Mm-hmm.
still to show some respect for, like, hey, our country, there was a lot wrong with it back then.
100%. You can do both is the thing, right? You can say this league was an incredible feat and it achieved a lot of things for women at that time while also being critical of the fact that it didn't evolve in this way. I think you
Right.
can do both. And I think she
Hmm.
does a great job of doing both. She does an awesome job. So, yeah, good call out there. We also just have, again, speaking to more stories, you see women who get married. So Marla, of all folks, is somebody that I love her wedding in this movie. It's so
Yeah.
cute. They have
Yeah.
the baseball arch, the baseball bat arch. And she's just the last person you would expect to get married with all the quote unquote homely comments that they make about her. But, she meets her man in the club.
I was going
And
to say, well, you couldn't do a very good walk in. Can you do a good Marla Hooch singing at the club? Can
no, I can't. Mostly
Mackenzie, we have
because
got to work on your impression game.
I'm not an impression girl, but I will practice. Give me a heads up next time, and I'll practice one, and then
Okay,
I'll
here's
be
what you
ready.
have to practice. It had to be you. That's how it goes.
I think that was a great impression.
Thank
That's
you.
very
Thank you.
accurate, very accurate. But she serenades the shit out of what is his name again?
Nelson. I'm singing a Nelson.
Nelson. I'm singing a
I have so
Nelson.
much of this movie
I know,
memorized.
but I love how she says it. You're totally right. I'm singing a Nelson. Like she's just all in.
Yeah.
And yeah, she ends up marrying the guy. She has a beautiful little baseball bat wedding arch, adorable, love it. One of the more sad storylines though is for our very own Betty Spaghetti, who
Mhm.
is so sweet and great player. But this is one of the, like you said, it's an overall very lighthearted, nice, beautiful film. But there are a couple rough moments. And this is one of the ones where there is a telegram from the War Department. The guy who brings it is the most insensitive piece of
Yep.
shit you have ever seen. And his fucking color commentary the whole time he's trying to figure out who this telegram is for. I mean, I could have slapped him then. If I was Jimmy, I would have been
Mhm.
like, figure it out outside, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's terrible. And then Jimmy wrestles him basically for the telegram. And but what you see in that shot is it's this slow, very intense, purposeful walk, and it could very easily be for Dottie. She's right next to
It
her.
could be for any
It
one
could be
of them,
for
and
any of
it's
them, yeah.
it's such a great shot because you watch each of their faces as Jimmy passes by or approaches them, at least, and
Mm-hmm.
each of them, the credit to the actresses here of just the worry and the concern and all the terror going through their eyes until it finally gets down to just Betty and Dottie.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like he's beelining for Dottie, and like you
Yeah.
can't help but think that that's potentially what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And to your point, Gina Davis, like her reaction when it's not her, the relief, the sadness for Betty, the immediate and
Mhm.
again, everyone wanting to comfort her, women supporting women, like coming to her and trying to take care of her in that moment. It is just really a beautiful scene overall, but it is hard. It's a hard watch, and it's one of the few like moments of just rough emotional suspense in the film.
Yeah, the
Uh,
actress there nails it too. Betty Spaghetti's actress, who actually another little bit of nepotism in this film is Penny Marshall's daughter. So Betty Spaghetti is played by
mhm,
Penny Marshall's
mhm,
daughter, but
mhm.
she kills it in that scene for sure.
Oh yeah, she does a great job. And you really you feel it. It's one of those, like, it gets you every time. Like I always choke up a little in that scene. It's really good. But yeah, keeping it going forward, we have, a bunch of other games and they're making progress and the league is starting to ramp up and get a lot of attendance and things like that. But that night, actually, the night of the telegram, I think it is shown as being the same night. Dottie is crying, upset. It's just the stress of it could have been her husband. She doesn't
Yeah.
know where he is, and he fucking magically shows up. Bill Pullman coming in hot as Gina Davis's
Former
Dottie's husband.
President Bill Pullman
Former President Bill Pullman,
helped beat the
exactly.
aliens. He's the reason that July 4th exists, so put some
Right.
respect on his name.
He protected us all, obviously. Yeah, no, he does a great job. Is a small role in this, but he does a great job and he's very sweet. And it's nice to see that he shows up and like brings her this relief. He's injured, but he's not like severely injured. He's gonna heal, but that's why he's back. But it's disappointing to me, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, but it's disappointing to me, and I think it is to a lot of fans as they're watching, is that she immediately decides to go home.
I was going to ask you that. That was going to be my very next question. Was even every time I rewatch it, I'm shocked that we don't get a scene of him asking her or any conversation of him strong arming her in any way.
No.
I think she just assumes that's the
Time to go home.
expectation. That's the way it's always been. And I think I can't remember if her dialogue has anything of we want to have kids, so we want to start
It
a family. I
does.
want to get a
Yeah.
start on that. Makes a little more sense. But yeah, it's a bummer that she isn't even wanting to finish out the season.
Yeah, I think it's just they're in the playoffs, right? Like this is a big
Mm-hmm.
deal for her to finish this out, and she decides to go home. And she has said, "We want to have kids, we want to have a family. This is what I care about," and that's totally fine. Like it makes complete sense for any woman, but especially then to prioritize having a family. I totally completely understand it. But yeah, like you can't wait till the end of the season. It's not that far
Right.
away.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are really disappointed in that decision, including Jimmy. And
Yeah.
it just goes to one of the great interactions of this film among many, but he is really upset with her as well. She's not even saying goodbye, which I also think is like
Mm-hmm.
looks a little shitty as well. And he calls her out like, you love this. You love this game. Like, you don't want to admit it. I don't know why. And there's all kinds of reasons you could claim of why she doesn't want to, throw herself into this. But he's like, no, you love it. I can see it. I can tell. And she just says, well, it just got too hard. And
Mm-hmm.
it's his amazing line about it's supposed to be hard. If
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. The hard is what makes it great. And it's such a good line. And he delivers it. Oh, Tom Hanks delivers it so well.
Yeah, and I think he sees himself in Dottie, and he
Yeah.
realizes that he, for different reasons, lost his dream, and he gave up his
Mhm.
physical ability, to pursue his addictions instead, and lost his opportunity. And he doesn't want her to make a different type of mistake, but a similar line of like, "Don't give this up. You have this right in for you. Are in your
Yeah.
prime."
Yeah, and they even say that to him earlier. They're like, "Listen, you're a young man still. You could still be playing if you hadn't
Mm-hmm.
gotten drunk and hurt yourself and ruined your career." Like, yeah, I can totally see him really being upset with her for not taking this as seriously as he feels like she should. And so they move on. She does leave, but she comes back.
Only
And
for Game 7, right? Or am I misremembering this? Like, she
no,
misses
game
the entire
7.
World
She
Series until
misses the
Game
entire.
7.
Yeah,
What if they had
so
lost in 5?
right. I guess she's been checking the paper
Yeah.
and decided to keep turning around. Well, because she said we got as far as Yellowstone and then we turned back, and so you can tell this
Oh.
is like a multi-day trip that they've been driving home to Oregon. They get to Yellowstone, they decide to turn around, but it's going to take a while to get back. So that's the other thing is, takes a few days to
Mhm.
get back after that. And so, yeah, she makes it back and for game 7. And of course, there's a little bit of a like push pull of like, I didn't say you could play. And of course he wants her to play and she plays. And
Yeah.
it's an incredible game. It's, again, you've seen this movie a bunch of times and you know exactly what happens. And it's just such a testament to how well it's shot and done that you still have that stress and anxiety of the whole game.
Yeah.
You're just like waiting for it to happen or go differently or what have you. And of course it doesn't. And her sister's team wins. And it's just not what you expect at all. And I'm curious what you think about that story choice. Would you have rathered her team win or the Racine Bells win?
I think having the Racine Bells win, at first it's historically accurate, and you could say, well, then just put Dottie on the other team. But I think it also makes a lot of sense story-wise, because otherwise I think Kit gets no closure. She's still in her sister's shadow. And,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't talk about how Kit got traded to the other
Right.
team
Mm-hmm.
because Lowenstein or whoever it was thought there was conflict there. And he was like, oh, I
Yeah.
need to get rid of her to keep Dottie happy in here. So
Dottie was
Kit
gonna
takes it
leave.
personally. Yeah.
Dottie was gonna leave, and then she says, "Well, no, just trade me." And then, of course, he doesn't
Mhm.
trade her; he trades Kit, and it's a whole thing. But it ends up as you can see, being great for Kit. It's exactly
Yeah.
what she needed.
Yeah, so I think that you get that final moment where Dottie recognizes the talent that her sister has. Her sister gets some recognition and gets out of her shadow, but Dottie's
Mhm.
still very happy. It's still, I think, even today, leaves a bit of a sour taste in my mouth when they're in the locker rooms and they're congratulating each other and whatnot. But I'm like, I really wanted the Peaches to win because they felt like the protagonists of this story. But
They did, and they feel like the better team, to be honest. Like, not, I mean, even if you watch the game, I mean, you can see in the World Series, like back and forth, there's a good, obviously, that's why I went to game 7. But it feels in that game like they're playing so well, and
Mhm.
and then Dottie's back. And so you think, like, of course it was neck and neck in the first 6 games. Dottie wasn't there. Now Dottie's back, and you
Mhm.
feel like it's going to be a blowout, but it's not. And that's unexpected. And but yeah, I do think for the story, you're totally right. It gives Kit some closure that she needs. But flash forward to where we're finally seeing them as all older women coming together for this big event and in this museum, and they're
Mhm.
celebrating this beautiful league and everything that it meant to them. And then Kit and Dottie see each other, and I feel like there's such an implication that they don't really see each other, that their lives are very, very separate.
Yeah, I got
And
that vibe
I
too.
and I don't love that. I'm like, I thought this whole thing was supposed to be like
Bring
a
them together.
reconciliation for you guys, and you
Mhm.
then can bond and be together as sisters. And obviously, Dottie leaves the league anyway, and Kit can go on and to glory and fame and all the things. And like, that's just not what you get from it. You get like, we love each other and we respect each other, but we don't really have a relationship, really, is the way it seems.
I mean, I don't know that it's they don't have a relationship. Maybe
Well,
it's just they
close,
see
close
each other.
relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they
Sorry.
only see each other so often. But yeah, and speaking of the Peaches being better, Racine also had shitty coaching. I never realized it until I saw it on this time, but on the hit where Dottie puts the Peaches in the lead, actually, the Peaches have runners on second and third. And then Dottie comes up, who's their team's best hitter.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't
Mm-hmm.
intentionally walk her to first base. I'm sorry that I'm throwing a lot of sports at you, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, why
No.
would you not walk her and load the bases? You have 2 outs,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
instead she hits like a double or whatever and drives in two
Right.
runs and gives them the lead. So Racine deserved to lose that game, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, Racing did not have good managing. And also, I mean, I will say, you have Jimmy Dugan, who didn't manage it for so long well either. So it's like you wouldn't expect them to end up in the World Series, but they did finally kind of turn it around. So
Maybe there's like a sequel that needed to be made with the Racine coach's story. Maybe he was
the
like
Racing
a coke addict and he's just like throw the ball fast. We're never walking anybody, and he just has lots of ideas.
Yeah, he we need that as the follow-up. We need the follow-up story. This is the sequel for sure. 100%. But yeah, I love the historical accuracy of it, that they honored who actually first won, and I totally respect that decision. The Rockford Peaches are the winningest team in the league, though. They have the most titles in the league. It just wasn't the first year.
Right. And
And
they weren't even the runner-ups the first year. The first year it
yeah.
was the Kenosha Comets, but I guess they didn't
Mhm.
think that was as catchy for this film, and who knows what our cocktail would have been today.
Oh
But
my god. I have no idea. Thank you for changing it to the Peaches, guys. I don't know what we would have done with a comet, but okay. But yeah, no, they do a beautiful job. And I love that they pay homage to it in this museum, and they show you kind of like the flash forward of all these folks, and Stool
yeah.
makes a reappearance, and all these people come back. You do feel like, some people are not there, but most people are there. And they cast it so well
Yeah.
that the older women, not just Gina Davis's character, but like they all look kind of like their younger selves. They do a really good
Yes.
job, and it kind of has the same energy as that original team.
Yeah, and I like how they handle the fact that Jimmy Dugan has passed away by this point.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's touching, but it's not a direct. We don't need a line of dialogue. It's just Dottie looking at sort of a in memoriam of him and his career, and
Mhm.
sort of reflecting on that and the times they had together. But I thought that was very touching as well.
I agree, and I love that he goes out on that note, right? He goes out on this positive note that he gets to kind of take
Hmm.
take with him after this career that didn't quite turn out the way that he wanted, but he finds real love of this game and of these teams. And, he gets offered a different job by Mr. Harvey at the end there, and he turns it down because he says, I have a job,
Mhm.
this is the job that I want. And he has a real love for this team. He's gone from screaming at somebody for crying in baseball, which is, of course, another legendary line,
Number
to
54 ranked movie quote of all time by, let me look, the American Film Institute. Number 54 of all time. So
how
no
many
small
times in your
feat.
life have you said there's no crying in baseball?
Baseball.
Like
Yeah.
1 million times. I have said it so many times. So of course it is. It's so great. There's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in baseball. He does such a good job. So but yeah, so he's come from that, from screaming at his players to really loving this team and loving
Yeah.
this experience. And yeah, I love that they close it out on that. It's really sweet. But yeah, all that to say, this is an incredible movie that I love very much. I have a lot of nostalgia about this movie. I think it does a lot of things really well, even for being early 90s, as well as, again, referencing a time where women were not treated the same way or with any kind of, real equality. So I think it does a beautiful job in a lot of ways. I also love that it closes out the cast credits or the cast roster. So you see everyone's positions, the
Yeah,
positions that they played, and then their role and all of that. And so I just really love this movie. I think it's a really wholesome, like I said, about the Marshalls, very wholesome but
it's a good
poignant
word for it.
film.
Yeah.
And it's just a fun watch. Like I could watch it a million times for sure.
Yeah, the humor all still hits too. There's
Still
not a
hits.
single joke in the script, I don't think, that does not land still
That
30
doesn't
some
land.
years later.
Yeah. Yeah, it all really lands really well. So I love it. I mean, all that to say, I could watch this again. I could watch this over and over. I feel like I could do this. It's like an 8.5 for me, probably on this film. 8.5 or 9, maybe even, because it's just such a good movie, I think.
Yeah, I personally, for all the reasons we said, just the humor is incredible. The script is tight. It's a fun movie to watch. It's got some emotional moments, so it'll also make you feel things. But by the
Hmm.
end, you just walk out. You can't be in a bad mood after watching this.
No.
It's so great. And yeah, I think aside from the whole Dottie being willing to walk away from this sport just because her man showed up, that's the only, I guess, thing that gets me a little annoyed, but it's the way the script works. So I too, yeah, I'd say like a 9. I think it's a
Yeah,
really, really good movie.
really good movie. I'm glad we picked it. I loved your suggestions again, but I'm glad we went with this one. I think it was really worth a chat about it because it's just
Mhm.
really good. It's a classic. But all to say, you've seen it. Hopefully, go back and watch it again because it's just so damn good. You can watch it many, many
Facts.
times. But for now, we're gonna be back next week actually with
I
our
thought you were
football
about to say
interview.
the catchphrase. You said for
No,
now,
no,
and like you were setting it up, and
no. Let me mark it. Actually,
no,
I
don't
did.
mark it. I thought that was funny.
I
I'm leaving that in.
Okay, leaving it in. Got it. Well, we're going to do our next football movie, which is what? Tell the people what we're going to talk about.
This might be a little controversial especially the people who texted us and Instagram messaged us about not liking the baseball pick,
I
but let me
know.
explain it. I wanted to do The Water Boy, and we had other choices. We had more dramatic choices. Remember the Titans, Rudy, all that good stuff.
Yes.
But I was like, we should do The Water Boy because it's like, again, just lighthearted. We've spent a whole month doing
Heavy
Oscar
stuff.
pictures and
Yep.
heavy films. Mackenzie does not like Adam Sandler at all.
I don't. I hate him so much. I
So
really don't.
we're going to do a different, go ahead.
Do we want to just listen to me rage for an hour and like talk shit? Also, I overwatched The Waterboy as a kid because my sister loved that movie and I hated Adam Sandler and I've seen it a million times. And I just see, I'm already getting ragey. Listen to my voice. I'm already ragey about it.
So all that to say, we are going to do a different comedy football film next week called
Yes.
The Replacements with Mr. Keanu Reeves. And I think this is the first Keanu Reeves movie we will be doing. But
I think so.
definitely a
Wow.
little different for him. He's done comedy and he's done action and stuff, I think, but in the last couple decades, he's mostly been doing the John Wick things. But yeah, so we'll be doing The Replacements next week and come back because I plan on asking Mackenzie to elaborate for at least 3 to 4 minutes on why she hates Adam Sandler so much.
Oh, I have so much material. You're gonna regret that decision. But I do think this is an underrated, not often watched sports film. So I am excited that we're going this route because I do think it'll be fun. But for now, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.